Shreya Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Hendrickson.
And I'm Jamie Cruz.
Glad to have you all back this week. Last week, if you were with us, we were talking about Jamie's background, how Taurus therapy came to be and what she does there, what her passion is. This week, we're going to look a little bit more at my background, what Balance Wellness Centers is, and how that developed.
Yeah. So tell us how Balance started and how long ago and what that vision was and dream was of yours.
Yeah, so Balance started about 2017, I want to say, and that was really just a culmination of me trying to figure out what the heck was going on with myself.
Isn't that how it normally happens?
Right? Yeah. I think so. Mm-hmm. For most of us anyway, who are really passionate about what we do, there's usually some personal connection to the field that we've chosen to practice in. And for me, it started, I want to say way back when I was a kid, but nothing really significant until I was in my mid-20s and went in for a physical because I was getting ready to start a family and wanted to make sure I was healthy. I had always suspected that starting back then, that there was something wrong with my thyroid. Runs in my family on both sides, all the way back to my great-grandma who had goiter. So it's a pretty predominant condition in my family, and I had all the classic symptoms: fatigue, trouble with maintaining a healthy weight, hair loss, constipation, you name it, the whole list of symptoms was showing up. And they ran blood work, traditional panels, and everything was normal. And I was fine. And so I went about my life, and I had 2 kids, and don't you know, things just got worse physically. And so it was, I would say, maybe 2010, after my daughter, that I started to kind of figure some stuff out. Anyhow, long story short, I ended up finding out eventually through functional blood work that I had Hashimoto's, which is the autoimmune version of hypothyroidism. And as I figured that out through a good friend I was working for at the time, who's a chiropractor who practices functional medicine, that was a very kind of cutting edge.
Is this Dr. Voss?
No.
Oh, okay.
But we'll meet him soon too.
Yeah, we will.
Her name is Dr. Royer, and she is up in Des Plaines. But she ran some functional labs, which I didn't even know what that meant at the time. But basically it was looking at a full thyroid panel, which is looking for autoimmune markers and activity against the thyroid tissue, as well as T3, T4, some markers that are not typically run in a traditional office setting. And she called me up and she's like, "You're right, your thyroid's off, you have Hashimoto's." I thought that was the answer, right? And I dove real deep into functional medicine at that point, got certified through the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, was part of their first graduating class that was developed actually to support the Institute of Functional Medicine practitioners that were coming out certified as functional medicine practitioners. So they had a set of health coaches ready to support their patients with implementation. Went on to become national board certified and then got my FDN-Practitioner certification as well, which gave me more insight into lab testing and the use of supplements to support different conditions. So Balance was formed in 2017 when I first finished FMCA as a way to start to help educating other people who were not getting the answers they felt like they should be from the traditional sources out there. It's my passion really to empower my clients, to let them know that they do indeed have the power to uncover what's going on with them, to heal themselves. That is not something we do. We don't diagnose, we don't treat, we don't cure, we don't heal people, but we provide them with the information and the tools and the education and the empowerment to figure it out, help them along the way, and support them as they heal themselves in their own journeys.
So just like we do at Taurus, guiding people to their hearts, you guide people to help heal their bodies.
Yeah, it really is. And I think you touched on this too. Creating awareness is a big piece of this process, because if we are not tapped in, if we're not aware of the way our bodies are communicating with us, it's really hard to get better, right?
So that's like what I call sleepwalking. When we're unaware, we're living in life, It's like when you sleepwalk, you're walking, you're touching things, you're moving along, but your eyes are closed and you don't really know what you're doing.
Going through the motions.
You're going through the motions. And when you open those eyes up, there's a whole, world in front of you.
Right. I remember vividly one of my first kind of aha moments that something really needed to shift in my life was sitting with a couple of friends who I worked with at the time. And I said, I'm so tired of surviving my life.
Yeah.
I want to live my life. I'm merely surviving right now.
I don't know how many people know the difference nowadays, especially since COVID.
Right.
I think we're waking up to it. I think that COVID has shaken things up.
For sure.
But right, that survival, that what is living? What does that even mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just trying to get through the day is where I was at, right? On so many levels, physical, emotional, you name it.
Yeah.
So balance was formed, like I said, to really start to share this information and to help empower, mostly it seems women, but guys, you too, tap in to understand what your body is trying to communicate to you. And I always say, like, it'll start off like a little, like, I don't like that very much. And we're like, that's okay. I just can't eat like I used to. I'm getting older, or, I just overdid it a little bit today, or whatever. We have all sorts of ways of rationalizing the symptoms and signs and signals that our body is giving us so that we can keep eating the cheeseburgers or whatever it is that's your vice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets a little bit louder and a little bit louder and a little bit louder until ultimately it's screaming at us. And we either go one direction where we go into our traditional MDs and we get a prescription for the symptom to quiet it down, or we start asking questions and we start digging. And so in functional medicine and at Balance, what we're trying to do is identify root cause of this dis-ease that the body's experiencing and start addressing that.
Yeah, and I think in one of our takes, because we've done so many for you lovely listeners, I know that we both had touched on dis-ease and what that really means, and that word disease, which goes like really quickly, when we slow down that word dis-ease, there's so much dis-ease going on in this body, and listening to what that dis-ease is, whether that be my emotions, whether that be my mental, my thoughts, whether that be my body and what's happening inside of it. And why am I gaining all this weight? Or why am I so puffy all of a sudden when I wake up? Or why am I so fatigued when it's got to be just because I'm working so much. No.
Right. Yeah. And
we're actually really be able to do a lot when our body is at ease, right?
Right. And so that's kind of part of the education piece when I work with clients. I developed a 5-pronged approach to wellness that identified.
You wrote a book.
I did. Yeah, it's Kiss Your Bloat Goodbye. It's in editing, so the second edition will be available shortly. But you can find the protocol or the 5-step process in there. It's called Planting Seeds for Change, and it really focuses on what I consider to be the 5 pillars of health. So I think we can do a lot of healing looking at one of them or 2 of them. But to get the whole person really, truly well, we need to address these 5 pillars. And the first one is stressors. So usually when people think about stress, they're thinking things like finance,
work,
relationships.
Kids.
Right. It's all emotional. It's very heady, anxiety type depression and emotion, like fear and things like that, right? Now, that is absolutely a major stressor, and we do need to identify and address those for sure. But there's so many other stressors that people don't take into consideration when we're looking at how to heal ourselves. And that can be things like our environment. Is your environment healthy? And I mean healthy from like an emotional stressor perspective, but also are you exposed to heavy metals or chemicals or pesticides or mold? Mold toxicity is huge. That's a major stressor on the body. Are your hormones imbalanced? That's a stressor. These are internal hidden stressors, right, that we don't think about as stressors necessarily. Food can be a huge stressor for people. If you're eating something that your body is reactive to, oh my gosh, that's stress all day long, right? Because we don't know, so we keep eating that thing. creating inflammation.
I keep thinking, like, the vision that keeps coming to my mind is that it's like when we put something in our bodies or we're exposed to something, some chemical in our environment, that our body is just like going like this.
It's like an alarm system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our cells are going all crazy, but we can't see that in the visible eye, right? And that's the hard part.
So it pops up in all sorts of ways. And when we talk a little bit more about functional medicine, gut health, food sensitivities in later episodes, we'll talk about a lot of the different ways that food sensitivities can present in the body, because I think that is super important for people to understand. So many people think that it's just a digestive situation, and that's just not the case. So that's an important thing to generate awareness around, and there's lots of different ways that we can go about doing that for our clients.
So stress, what's the
Stress,
second?
yeah. The second is emotional mental wellness, which is where Taurus comes in. And it was so important for me, looking at functional medicine, to really embrace this emotional wellness piece, because as great as functional medicine is, I think that it falls a little short when we talk about supporting people's mental health.
Yeah.
And that's paramount. I do not believe, my own personal opinion and experience, that a person can be truly fully healed if they're not addressing their mental health as well as their physical health and all of the other things that go along with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So after that, we take a look at exercise and movement. Now, again, this is a place where we try to re-educate and reframe, because exercise carries, I think, it's such a loaded word in our society, especially for women. So many of us for so many years have used it as a form of punishment.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have eaten that, or I don't like my legs, or my arms are too flabby, or I really need to get rid of this muffin top, so I'm gonna go kill myself in the gym to try to change these things I hate about myself, right?
Yeah.
So it's been fear driven, it has been used as punishment or a way to make up for certain dietary choices. And it really needs to be looked at as a love-based movement.
Right. Well, it goes back to that mental aspect.
Yeah.
If I'm saying to myself that I hate myself and I hate this part of my body, I'm going to exercise, but what is it really going to do?
Create more stress.
Create more stress.
Right.
But if I'm coming at it with, I love my body. I love this body that my soul is living in. I need it for every day. I need it to take care of my family. I need it to work. I need it for all these things. So I appreciate you so much. Exercise is going to be completely turned around, because I'm going to be doing it because I know that my body needs it. My body craves it. My body wants it. So
yes, exactly. So it becomes exercise and movement, right? What does healthy exercise and movement look like for you, the individual, right now in your current condition? Because I can't tell you, myself included, the number of people I've seen who are dealing with chronic type inflammatory conditions or autoimmune disease, and they are killing literally themselves in the gym every day.
Yeah.
Right? And all that's doing for that person, in my personal experience, I'll speak from what I know to be true for myself, is I was adding fuel to the fire and making myself sicker, doing these super intense HIIT workouts. I was a CrossFit coach for a long time. I absolutely love CrossFit. I really do. I ran marathons, half marathons. I mean, I was killing it in the gym, and I was adding fuel to the fire and making myself sicker and sicker and sicker, and I didn't know it. I thought I was doing what I needed to do, right? But my self-talk tape back then was like, come on, fatty, you can't get off the treadmill yet. Like, that is the energy I was coming at it with. And so it was really hard for me when I was diagnosed to pull back from all that intense training, because that was sort of how I dealt with my body image issues. Like, I felt like it could control things if I stayed in the gym. And I had to pull way back to like walking and belly breathing and a little bit of yoga. And that was really tough mentally for me. But what I try to re-educate and reframe with my clients and really drive home is that this movement, one, should be coming from a love-based perspective. Like, I love my body. This is a way I honor it and keep it healthy and strong so that I can live this life full of vitality and do all the things that I want to do and Be grateful for it. Did it give you babies? Oh my God, how amazing is that, right? All of the craziness that my body's carried me through over the years, and the stress I've put it through, and it's still here, you know?
Yeah, it's still here. I can't
right?
believe it sometimes. Right? I look down and I'm like, oh, okay.
It didn't quit on me yet. It tried once or twice, but so that, and also, especially when we're dealing with like chronic type issues, chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, autoimmune, is starting to, again, generate awareness. Like, how do you feel after your workout? Are you energized? Do you feel ready to go and conquer your day? Or are you totally wiped out and dragging? And if you're totally wiped out and dragging and drained for the day, let me tell you, it used to be my marker of a great workout. And really what it is you've done too much for your body and it needs a break, and it's trying to tell you that.
Yeah, it's like, again, that image that I have is like that cell, those cells are just like firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, high alert, right? Yeah. Or throwing gasoline on fire. Yeah. I mean, that is what we're doing when we're overtraining for our current condition. And I can't stress that enough, because no one person is the same. There's no one right workout program, no one right way to eat. None of that can be cookie cutter. And so we do really try to work as closely with our clients as we can to work on an individual basis. What's going on with you right now? And what's happening right now may not be what's happening in a month. So we do need to tweak and make changes and reassess. But it's really important for people to understand how their bodies are communicating with them. And to come at it from like a positive, again, love versus fear kind of perspective, right? So then we look at diet and nutrition, another nasty loaded word in our society, especially for women. I mean, man, I think I've probably been on some sort of diet since, what, 7th grade? Is that when it starts for most of us?
Probably.
Especially back then, like all the fat-free things that we were into back in the, early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
Not the best way to go, fat-free products, but it is what it is. We live and we learn, right? So it's, again, the re-education, reframing. Diet is what we put in our mouths as nourishment. It is what we use for supplementation. It is our environment. It is our social media intake. It is what are we bringing into our experience on a regular basis that's forming our perceptions and our perspectives, and that is diet, right? Is food a piece of that? Absolutely. And we go way into that and learning how to listen to what your body's saying about food to you, right? But it's not restrictive from a restricting calories perspective. It's not a starvation thing. It is not a you can never sort of approach, which hopefully is refreshing, because I feel like there's just so much of that out there. It's, again, coming at it from love versus fear, right? We restrict because we're afraid that this will make me fat, or this will make me this, or that will make me whatever else, versus how do I fuel my body so it can be at its best, so it can be, again, full of energy, and I can have this awesome experience and live a life full of vitality, right? How am I nourishing these cells in this body so that it can do what I'd like it to do for the next, hopefully, 40 years or more, right?
Right.
And so it's really that piece that I think is so pivotal for so many of us. So we spend a lot of time around that, but that always comes back to emotions too.
Well, so as I'm listening to you talk, Ashley, I think about being an intuitive therapist, and I think about how people sense into different things in their environments and in their bodies, and how, as I work with people, I really try and tap into those senses. And as I'm listening to you talk, it's like that diet piece is that sensory experience. To what are the 6 senses, right? It's what I'm seeing. So what is it that I'm seeing that is going to give me that sensory experience of happiness, of love, of peace, of calm? What's the smell? How many of us can remember the smell that you were wearing, like your junior prom, or those really big events? Yeah. Smell is super important. I think the olfactory system is like one of the strongest.
It is the strongest memory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we have taste. So what's juicy? what's going to give you a really full flavored experience? Is it McDonald's or Wendy's, or is it a nice strawberry or a berry when you're really paying attention and really mindful and going back to living life?
Right.
Living life, and that's the experience of life.
And the mindfulness and the creating awareness is so important.
Right. What am I hearing? What is in my environment that is, again, moving towards that love or moving towards that fear?
Right.
So it's really kind of cool to hear you to talk about this, because it's a very sensory driven. We're supposed to be living in our senses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a Jamieism. I don't really know if we're supposed to.
I don't know how you can't. I mean, unless you're totally asleep at the wheel. But yeah, I mean, it's a sensory experience. It's a way that we connect with people. So that gets really challenging.
Yeah.
And again, it's just that redirection, reframing. Can the event be around the connection with the people versus the food that's going in my mouth?
That's right.
And I've been at this so long, you guys, I started to figure out that I had food sensitivities when I was nursing my son, who's now 14. It's been a long road, and it takes time. So you have to be patient and very gentle with yourself along the way, because it does take time. It's like changing any other habit. People who quit smoking or try to quit drinking, it's an average of 7 attempts before you're successful. Food's a little bit tougher than that, I think, because it's so...
I've been doing it since birth.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's a necessity. It's not just a need, it's a necessity.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, since birth, because I think that so many people kind of are unaware of what feeling good feels like, because we've been eating the way we've been eating since we were babies.
Well, I often say that we only know what we know, and if I come from a family that doesn't know and that is unaware and has high stress, high chaos, all of those things.
Right.
We're not going to know any different. That's the way that our nervous system is wired. And so to do something different, that nervous system goes into shock a lot of times. And that's why it takes so long. And that's why we need a community of people to help and to be supportive, because it is so hard to change.
It really is. I mean, it is. And really, Balance Wellness Centers is built on change. Yeah. It's the only constant. It's the only thing we can count on happening all the time.
And her logo is a triangle, which represents that constant movement.
Yeah, change, the delta.
Yeah.
Change. Because I'm also a nerd, if you didn't know. Love that sort of stuff. But the last piece is silence. And I'll say meditation, that's another loaded word. It's not got any religious affiliation, and we talk a lot about belly breathing in this space as well, because back to your point about the nervous system, so many of us are unaware of the way that we breathe and are unaware of the fact that the way we breathe makes a really big difference in how our bodies are responding to all sorts of stimuli. So when we're doing these shallow chest breaths, this is sending a signal to our body that we're not in a safe space. We're in fight or flight when we're doing this shallow breathing. We are stimulating the sympathetic nervous system response. And the body can't heal there. It just can't. It's trying to get to tomorrow. And so when I start teaching and talking about belly breathing with my clients, I'll often way over exaggerate just to drive the point home. But you could be sitting on your couch watching TV, thinking you're relaxing, but you're taking these like short, shallow chest breaths. Your body doesn't know the difference between that and running sprints or running away from some life-threatening situation. And if we go way back to like the time of the caveman,
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
If you have a broken leg, right? But you're trying to survive, you don't know if you're going to get to tomorrow. Your body is spending zero energy fixing that leg, because if you're not here tomorrow, who cares if the leg works, right? So it's just trying to get to tomorrow. On the other hand, when we start to tap into that deep belly breath that is stimulating the vagal nerve, it is switching us from that sympathetic to the parasympathetic response, from fight or flight to rest and digest. Guess what starts to happen? The body is like, oh, we're safe. This is time to rest. This is where I can do cellular repair. This is where I digest my food and assimilate my nutrients. This is where healing happens. And so learning to retrain your body to breathe that way is so important. I can't stress it enough. But I do realize that it's a tricky thing for people to learn. There's tons of YouTube videos, so I'd encourage you to go look for some. But the easiest way that I found to communicate how to do this is just to find a place you're comfortable and lay down on your back, one hand on your chest and one over the belly button. And as you're breathing, the belly button hand should rise and fall with your inhale and exhale. And the one on your chest should stay pretty still. It can take a little while to kind of get comfortable with that and get it to work the right way. But it is so important. The other thing that I find is that people get kind of freaked out about, like, I can't just sit and breathe for 20 minutes. I have all these things to do.
Yeah, one of my teachers, actually, when I was learning this skill, told me to practice as I'm driving.
Yeah.
So it's as you're on, you're driving and you're just going and you're just kind of noticing the belly move up and down. That way you're starting to train that breath.
Yeah.
Every time you get into the car.
Absolutely. And I tell all my moms too, like, hey, when you're sitting in pickup line, belly breathe, because you're stressed out then, for sure, right? You get stuck at a red light, you're sitting in traffic, belly breathe. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. Even just, 3 to 5 breaths before you get up in the morning, 3 to 5 breaths when you lay down to go to bed at night can really make a difference.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and I think we're going to talk a lot about too in future podcasts about more of what to do, how to do some of these tools.
We'll get way deep into all this stuff. This is just kind of an entry level, here we are, this is what we do and why we do it kind of piece. But
why it's important to the model.
Yeah. But if you are someone who's listening who is curious about how to start figuring some of this stuff out, or you're looking for some additional support, maybe you're working with a functional medicine provider, there's a lot of great ones out there, but you need a little help implementing these protocols that you've been handed, please feel free to reach out. You can reach us at info@bwcenters.com. Visit the website, www.bwcenters.com. And we are happy to do a free 15-minute consultation with you to kind of figure out if we can help support you. I'm pretty confident we can. I've got a great team of coaches working with me, lots of virtual appointments available and telemedicine support. But we've all been there. Everyone who's working with me as a coach has walked the walk, is walking the walk, has been through it. It's a real genuine passion of all of ours to live this way and to help others figure out how to start healing themselves. So thank you for being with us today. It's always a pleasure, and stay tuned. We've got some more exciting episodes coming up. We will be eventually, I would say within the next maybe 2 months, introducing you to our other partner practitioners. We've got some awesome people to get you acquainted with that offer really cool healing modalities. Some you may be familiar with, some maybe not. But anyway, our goal is to expose you to all of the things that can help you along the way. So thanks again for being here.
Thanks, guys, and stay tuned.
See you next week.